Get the whole Young Turks 3-hour show by going to theyoungturks.com. If you become a member, you get the whole show, plus a very fun post-game show as well. See you there. Welcome to the Young Turks. Awesome show. Awesome show. Do we have Republican sex on the show? Of course we do. It's almost lack thereof, but it had a complicated story. It involves violence and sex and Republicans. We'll get to that a little later in the program. Brian Unger joins us in the third hour, and we're going to discuss the world's greatest necklace. No, you don't want to miss that story. You don't have to be into necklaces. It's awesome. Furthermore, this just in. It just came in right before the show. Apparently, there's a conspiracy theory going on around Indianapolis that Peyton Manning might have thrown the Super Bowl. Oh, that's going to be awesome. All right, that's coming up in the third hour. All right, everybody's having fun. And Adam Green lit into the White House. It's making national headlines. I'm not playing around. He's joining us in a little bit. Isakov's going to come later and talk to us about John Ewan and what he got away with. And I want to talk a lot, of course. I'm going to break down the news for you. That's what I do, man. I take the news and I take a chisel to it, and I break it down for you. I got that on Afghanistan. I got more on Rahm Emanuel, and I got more on the public option and Obama, etc. All right. Now, having said all that, let's start with a little evaluation of the old Yougster here. I was on Dylan Radigan's show today on MSNBC. As usual, it lasted about 13 seconds. And we want to share it with you guys, and then I'll come and tell you all the things I meant to say. But I liked it overall. So everybody, let's have fun. Watch.
Emotional testimony today in the Toyota recall hearings as a Tennessee woman talked about driving down the highway in a Lexus that would not stop.
Car speeds to over 100 miles per hour down the interstate. I placed both feet on the brake after I firmly engaged the emergency brake, and nothing slows the car, and I prayed for God to help me. I called my husband on the Bluetooth phone system. I knew I'm sorry.
The president of Toyota Motors USA, Jim Lentz, apologized for his company's mistakes while admitting that the massive recall may not totally solve the problem of sudden acceleration. They did say that Toyota's electronic system is not to blame, however, for the safety defects. Bring in our panel, blogger, host of the Young Turks, Cenk Uygur. Cenk, I always have a hard time with your last name. One of these times I'll get it right. And Republican strategist Alex Conant. What strikes me more than anything, Cenk, is the government failure once again to connect the dots, and the fact that the cops appear to be working for the crooks, with Toyota hiring people from the National Highway Safety Transportation Board. Of course, companies, it's not a surprise when a company tries to cover up a problem with a product so they can keep making money. It's just always a little stunning when taxpayers pay those who monitor them, whether it's the bank regulators, the FDA, or in this case, the highway regulators, and it turns out they're more interested in working for the corporation than they are the people that pay them.
Absolutely. They had 2,600 complaints about Toyota between 2000 and 2010. They hardly did anything about it. In fact, when they were discussing some of these complaints, they laughed and rolled their eyes and giggled about these problems. Why? Because the corporations are in charge, and they don't really want to investigate any of this stuff. When Toyota did their own report, they didn't even look at any of the cars that had sudden acceleration problems. It's a joke. Let me give you a quick analogy. It's like allowing the casinos in Vegas to hire NBA refs after their career is over.
And let me give you, here's another analogy. It's like the banks in America. It's like the healthcare system in America. I go down the list. It's like that's why we're all sitting, that's why we can sit here and have such an obvious conversation. Tomorrow, a Silicon Valley startup, and one with a tremendous pedigree. Those who know Kleiner Perkins and other venture capital firms like that will be happy to know they're involved with this. They're going to announce what will either be the answer to all of our energy problems. Think of it like energy in a suitcase. You can just take it, buy it, take it home. Energy in a suitcase, Cenk, there's no way that can't solve all our problems.
Well, I sure hope it does. But here, as far as the science, I'm not a scientist, and I don't know if it'll work or not. But, if it does, it's a great example of the American free market system working well with American government. Because the guy who invented this used to work for NASA, and he had a lot of expertise that he built up there. And then there was government incentives
for people to buy this. So Google bought it, eBay bought it, et cetera, and it turned out that it worked. So, it's great innovation on his part combined with some government programs that wound up helping. That's the way America should work.
I actually completely agree with that. I mean, the government should be investing and encouraging research development to address things like climate change rather than the cap and trade and more regulation that they're talking about in Congress right now.
All right, there you go. Booyah! All right, now, it was a little panel discussion we had. We were short on time. I didn't get to a couple of things that I'd like to clarify. First of all, that NBA ref thing, just out of nowhere, boom, right before the show, came up with it off the top of my head. That's how I roll. I got to blog that out. I think that's pretty good. All right, so, and apparently the conservative guy seemed to like it. As I was saying it, he was laughing up a storm. He's like, "Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one." Then he agreed on the second one, too. All right. Hey, look at that bipartisanship. All right, now, what I didn't get to say was my Toyota story. I have a Toyota Camry now. Everybody knows this that's been listening to the show for a while. I jinxed Toyota. I bought the car, and then everything went downhill from there, right? And maybe that's what I was doing all these years, jinxing the American cars, as I kept buying American over and over. Anyway, we brought it in because it was part of the recall. We brought it in over the weekend. Something curious happened. They fixed the gas brake pedal thing, and then they said, "Oh yeah, you know what? We a little how's your father to the computer system." Huh. Because Toyota in the hearings today kept saying, "Oh, it's not an electrical problem. It's nothing to do with electrical problem. I'll tell you that for sure." So it's curious that they did something to what appeared to be the electrical part of our car. I don't know. I don't know much beyond it. I wasn't there. I don't know anything about how it works and why they did it. I'm happy they did it. I mean, if there's some fix that they're not telling us about but secretly doing, I'm glad that they did it to our car. But when Toyota says, no, don't worry, it's definitely not an electrical problem, worry. I have some facts for you guys. Hold on a second. Let me talk to JR.
Let's not forget about the Lower Merion High School. Check your car for some cameras in it because they're probably watching you to see if you're doing anything freaky in there, okay? So just calm down.
All right. Well, that's mainly Wendy's car, so I'm going to have to warn her on that. Or should I? All right. So as I read more into this and I listen to the hearings a little bit, you find out some really interesting facts. It turns out that people have been having this sudden acceleration problem with Toyotas, not just recently, but since 2000. For the last 10 years, our government has gotten 2,600 complaints about the same thing. Got investigated in 2004, 2007. Now, the government basically didn't do a damn thing about it. But State Farm is getting ready to stop working with Toyota because they said, look, you're not taking this stuff seriously enough. Okay, in other words, we don't want to insure you because there's something wrong here, okay, and you're not really addressing it. Now, they tell us that they got electrical problems in some of their cars, but not in most of the Toyotas, and only in 09 and 2010. But it turns out 70% of the complaints in the Toyotas are not from the cars that have been recalled. They're from other Toyota cars. Same thing, sudden acceleration, and they can't stop it, okay? So I'm not buying that it's just the gas pedal. Before they tried the floor mat, and that was some weak sauce. And obviously, that's ridiculous that oh no, the floor mat's getting bunched up under the gas pedal. And everybody would come in and go, no, that's crazy. I was in the accident. That didn't happen, right? And of course, the government, since they're in the pockets of any company that'll eventually hire them, they literally laughed and rolled their eyes and oh, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, right, I bet your mat didn't get rolled up. Right. So, look, let's talk about that for a second, because that's a really important part. Why doesn't the government do anything about this if they've been getting the complaints for the last 10 years? Part of it is the philosophy of big business always knows best. Representative Joe Barton, during the hearings, Republican, defending Toyota today, saying, hey, now, wait a minute now, let's be fair to Toyota, back off, they've been a good corporation for a long time. I saw another Republican on MSNBC earlier today saying, Toyota has been a good corporate citizen. I mean, as long as you're a giant corporation, the Republicans will have your back, and the ideology in Washington is companies are always right, and their consumers are little bothers to be flicked away, unless there's some huge national media uproar over it, okay? But the second reason is more important, I think, and more nefarious. some of the guys that worked in the government now work at Toyota. And it goes around and around, and it goes in that circle. And it's not just Toyota, it's all the car companies. The guys who are supposed to be regulating the car companies eventually get big payouts from the car companies. And that leads to that NBA analogy that I gave on MSNBC. Can you imagine if once NBA refs or NFL refs, any of those umpires in baseball, the minute they retired, they all went to work for Las Vegas casinos that lay down bets on their games? People will say, that's mental, that's crazy. There's no way you could do that, right? But we do all over our government, not just for cars, but for banks, for health insurance, for every single thing. If you work in the government and you're supposed to regulate that industry, the minute you retire, that industry hires you. That is an implicit bribe. You play ball and you will get paid. If you don't play ball and you try to actually regulate us, there's no payday for you. Why do we tolerate that? That's crazy. And that's what leads to this. That's what leads to people coming in and complaining and the regulators saying, get out of here, man. Yeah, right. And then those guys turn around and they literally got hired by Toyota. You understand how this works? It's crazy. You know, and that's why the American people are tired of this stuff. Now look at the head of Toyota. He's the grandson of the original founder. He says, my name's on every car, so I care deeply. But look at this quote he gave during the hearings. While we investigated malfunctions in good faith, we focused too narrowly on technical issues without taking full account of how our customers use our vehicles. Do you understand what he's doing there? He's blaming the customers. Because they're going to go into litigation. They're being investigated now, finally, by the SEC and by the Southern District Office in New York. That's the District Attorney's Office. So they're saying, well, you know, we designed a perfectly good car, but I guess we should have taken into account how the customers are going to use it all wrong. Oh, wow, they look like they're really on top of the problem. As I told you, 70% of the acceleration incidents happened in Toyotas that were not part of the recall in the 09 and 10 makes. 2,600 complaints over the last 10 years. There was an equipment recall of floor mats involving 55,000 Toyota Camrys and Lexus ES350s, and that happened earlier in the decade. Okay, that happened in 2004, and afterwards, Toyota writes this internal memo, and this is interesting. They say, we have limited the recall and hence saved Toyota $100 million or more. And they call that, quote, wins for Toyota. This is what the slide is called. Wins for Toyota Safety Group. So it's not a win in terms of they really fixed it. It's a win because they limited the recall and saved $100 million or more. Now, were the floor mats the real problem in 2004? My guess is no. My guess is they had the same problem back then that they do today. It's just we never discovered it because all the complaints were dismissed by our own regulators. And now that people are dying left and right, you know, it's not an epidemic, but you saw the woman in the hearings today telling the story of how she couldn't stop her for 6 miles. She thought she was going to die. Then there was the cop's family in San Diego that died because they couldn't stop it. And now all of a sudden, oh yeah, it wasn't the floor mats, but hey, you know what? Toyota saved hundreds of millions of dollars all those years not fixing the problem. It's the money, Lebowski. And let me give you one last couple of things here. And I'm quoting the Associated Press here. In his letter to Lentz, Lentz is the head of Toyota in the United States. Stupak wrote that the committee's preliminary assessment is that Toyota resists the possibility that electronic defects could cause safety concerns, relied on a flawed engineering report, and made misleading public statements concerning the adequacy of recent recalls to address the risk of sudden unintended acceleration. In other words, Stupak, you remember from the famous Stupak amendment, the pro-life guy? Well, he's doing some good work in this case. Fair is fair. And he says they don't want to fix the electrical problems. They don't want to, under any circumstances, admit that it was an electrical problem. He said experts interviewed by the committee demonstrated that the report used an extremely small sample. This is the Toyota report ordered by their lawyers on this, that would not get to the root of the problem. One of the primary authors of the Exponent report, that's the consulting report that was done for Toyota, get a load of this, said they did not examine any vehicles or components that had the unintended accelerations. Do you get that? That's awesome. They did a report saying, Oh, no, it's no problem. Yeah, it's just brake pads or something. Don't worry about it. I mean, the accelerator pipe. It's fine. No problem. In that report, they didn't look at any of the problems, any of the cars that actually had the unintended acceleration problem. Yeah, you're not going to find an electrical problem if you look at the wrong cars. That's unreal, because they don't want to find the problem. If they find the problem, it costs them maybe their whole company. I don't know. Imagine if all the Toyotas since 2000, or maybe even earlier, have this problem and we never knew about it. Do you have any idea what kind of trouble Toyota's in? They got to do anything and everything to cover that up. Now, I'm not saying they are. It's not definitive proof. Now, these things all hurt, but there isn't a smoking gun. I'm not saying all the Toyotas are busted, okay? But I'm saying, do I trust Toyota? No. Am I happy that the SEC is investigating? Absolutely. And final thing here from the Associated Press is, when owners complained about unwanted acceleration, Stupak said Toyota representatives, quote, commonly responded by concluding that the events the consumer described could not have happened. So how do you like how they fixed the problem? It couldn't have happened. Don't worry about it. Move along here. Nothing to see. Nothing to see. This is how corporations make money, and this is how sometimes, unfortunately, we get killed. All right. Let me do one last thing about those topics there. The balloon box we covered. But one topic we were supposed to get to was Senator Inhofe and how he's gloating that the science is now on their side on global warming and that we shouldn't do anything about it. He wants to do an investigation of all the scientists that got money from the government and that were involved in those stolen emails, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that drives me crazy about it, and if we had gotten that topic on Radigan's show, I want to talk about is, they have 18 years worth of emails that they stole, right, from these scientists. And they have about 2 or 3 emails that they claim are incriminating outside of context. Now, I looked at those emails. You know why? I don't want to misspend money. I don't want to misdiagnose the problem. I don't have a horse in this race. Well, why would I want to spend more money? If global warming isn't happening, what are we wasting our time for, right? So I looked at the emails. Is there something to this, right? Are these scientists really playing tricks on us? In 18 years, they got 2 or 3 emails out of context. I give you a sense of what I mean by that. One of the scientists says, you know, unfortunately, the numbers have, for last year, don't match the rising heat from the decade before. And so they don't really fit. Now, in a given period of time, numbers fluctuate, right? They go up and down. But last decade, we had the warmest decade in recorded history, right? But the year after that, or in one of the years, the most recent year, the numbers actually did not rise, but they went down. Now, the guy says it's unfortunate in the email. They take that to, aha, you see, they're fixing the numbers. They're fixing it, right? They're not fixing the numbers. The guy's saying it's unfortunate because it's going to be misinterpreted. So it's no big deal, and there's no way, like Inhofe is saying there's a global conspiracy by all the scientists. So you're telling me there's this global conspiracy pulled off by 2 or 3 vague emails? That's all you got? So where's the rest of the conspiracy? Where are the emails where they talk to all the different scientists and they say, all right, you fix those numbers and I'll fix these numbers? None of the emails talk about fixing anything. Some of the charges they made are like, some of these scientists don't like the global warming deniers. Yeah, of course they don't. Who cares? But the reason that I bring this up is because, look, if you don't challenge Inhofe, and people who are now saying, Inhofe says the science is on our side, which is an unbelievable comment to make, they're going to win. Already, he's got so-called conservative Democrats backpedaling away. They say, oh, no, we're not going to do anything about greenhouse gases, cap and trade is dead, no, ClimateGate, Inhofe is right, we got caught, forget it, back away. Now, those conservative Democrats, they didn't want to do anything anyway, they take the corporate money. But it gives them a good excuse. But you know how Democrats are, they'll all cave, they'll all crumble, based on nothing. And so it's so important to counter Inhofe's nonsense and all these global warming deniers' nonsense about so-called ClimateGate. They're going to run roughshod over this, and what drives me crazy is very likely none of the Democrats will ever respond, none of them will ever defend those scientists, and eventually The scientists will get punished, their money will get taken away, and we'll do not a damn thing about global warming. That's how they win the propaganda wars. But there's someone who's not going to stand for it. That someone is Adam Green. When we come back, he kicks some White House ass on the public option. Uh-oh, Young Turks.
Like shirts and it hurts with a neck direct. Took a poll 'cause our soul took control from the education of a TV station.
Back on the Young Turks. Now, I want to do a couple things in this segment, but I really want to tell you about what's happening in Afghanistan and how the people in power play the media. This is a great case of it. So there's a new offensive, of course, that we are doing in Afghanistan in the Marja area, and it's getting a lot of press. And I found something surprising about it, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what was different about this, right? Because I read this amazing story in the New York Times about how reporters embedded in this group of American soldiers and Afghan soldiers fighting in the area, and they're taking heavy fire, and there's snipers in the area, and then you're reading stories about how the Taliban fighters are more nuanced now, and they're better trained, and we're taking some casualties. And so I'm surprised by this because, one, we haven't seen this level of detailed reporting necessarily all the time, but also it's on the front page. Sometimes you get really great reports about Afghanistan and Iraq, but they're buried in the paper. But now it's front page. And then all of a sudden it's being trumpeted how well the Taliban fighters are fighting and how much trouble we're in that particular area as we're doing this offensive. That seems strange to me because usually the media goes with whatever the military leaders give them, right? They give them certain information and then the media reports it. Well, the Washington Post had a terrific story about this, which of course was buried in the middle of the paper. It was not on the front page, even though you would think that this would be massively relevant. The story was about how the U.S. commanders are using this battle in Marja to sell the war to us, to the U.S. public. And that so then everything began to fall into place. Oh, I see. And then IPS, Interpress Service News Agency, did a great follow-up story on that, where they explained that McChrystal and Petraeus have been pushing to use Marja as an example of what we can accomplish. Petraeus had a speech in Istanbul where he talked about this, where we're going to, hey, this battle is now fought as a battle of ideas and winning over the people of Afghanistan, but also winning over the people of the United States. And then the idea is that if they win in Marja, that they then will be able to buy more time so that they will not withdraw in 2011, as Obama stated. That if they can show that they're having some success and some victory, well, then the American people will have more patience in allowing that to develop and for us to stay longer in Afghanistan. So we're getting played here. So now when you go back to the original stories about how tough it is in Marja and how they're taking so much heat and fire and snipers and this and that, it all makes sense. Why? That's the commanders feeding to the media. Oh, this is a tough battle. I'll tell you what, we got our work cut out for us here. But heroically, a couple of days later or a couple of weeks later, it's going to turn out that we win in Marja. And God, that's a great victory despite all that adversity, right? Now, why do I say that maybe Marja is a great victory. Maybe it is really hard. Well, here come the other facts involved here. Marja is a town of about 50,000 people. And what a lot of the policy experts have been saying is they don't get it. Why are they going to Marja? First, there isn't much of a battle there. The real battle is in Kandahar. That city is 10 times larger and really where the trouble is and where the Taliban is centered, right? And in fact, we now find out that as we got into Marja, most of the Taliban that were in that area had already retreated. So these ideas of this great Taliban force putting us to the test in Marja is largely, not entirely, there really was gunfire, there snipers there, and there really was battles there, et cetera, but largely a fiction. Now, how do they create that fiction? This is amazing stuff. See, if they don't want the reporter there, they don't have him there, and all of a sudden there's no battle, there's no snipers, because the reporter wasn't there to see it, and that doesn't make it into the paper, right? If they want it to seem like, oh, we're in the middle of a fight, they take a reporter and they embed him into the front lines. And all of a sudden he sees bullets whizzing by. He's like, oh my God, there's a war here. Well, of course there's a war there. What do you think we've been doing there? Okay, and they create this idea, and then they say to the New York Times, this is an important story. We gave you we let your reporter be the one that's in the front line. You better run in the front. And the New York Times gets excited, and they run on the front page. Oh, God, it's brilliant. It really is. So then you will see the end of this story, okay, because it hasn't fully ended yet. You will see in a couple of days or a couple of weeks that we have heroically won in Marja, even though it was an enormous battle. And then slowly you will see over time the commanders making the case, oh, I'll tell you what, if you want more success like we had in Marja, we're going to need more time and, more resources, etc., and we're going to have to stay in Afghanistan a little longer. And that's how you get played. Credit to the Washington Post for running that story. Credit to the Inter-Press Service News Agency for giving it more background. But of course, the Washington Post, in its editorial wisdom, did not put that on the front page. A story that is very important, very interesting, and really gives you the true perspective, runs in the middle of the newspaper where they hope no one will read it. You see, that's how this game is played. So, now, meanwhile, more civilian deaths in Afghanistan. Another bomb went off, killed 27 civilians. We apologize profusely for it, et cetera, et cetera. And there's now every story I read on Afghanistan, and it's true throughout all of politics. What is the factual basis for this story? I remove the facts, kind of like Thomas Jefferson did with the Bible. I'm going to remove the nonsense, keep the core, right? So, and then I look at what's the spin. Why was this story written? And who's trying to drive this agenda? Why did it appear here? And why did it appear now, right? So Politico has a story about how this is a different kind of war and how we're now using great diplomacy in Afghanistan. And we are. The diplomacy that Obama's using is fantastic. He's involving the Chinese when the Bush administration ignored the Chinese. The Chinese are very relevant players because they're great allies with Pakistan, very relevant to Afghanistan. So when you read the substance of the Politico article, they're right. Obama's diplomacy in Afghanistan and Pakistan has been fantastic and one of the bright spots of his administration. But why is that running in Politico today? Because they want to push the image of, oh boy, we are doing so well in there. What we don't want to do is stop doing what we're doing. So give us more money, give us more resources, give us more time. Let this great diplomacy and these great battles play out so that we can win in Afghanistan. That's how this game is played. All right, now, finally, I promised you a Republican sex story from earlier in the show. So let's have a little bit of fun and give you that as well. Okay? It involves Jim Gibbons. Jim Gibbons is the governor of Nevada. He's being accused and brought into court over an alleged assault and threatened rape of a Las Vegas resident, Chrissy Mazzeo, in 2006. Now, we covered this on the show back then, and it was grainy video footage of them in a parking lot. And, it's hard to tell what's going on, but she claims that he pushed her and that he wanted sex from her. Now he's under a deposition because she's suing him, right? And he says, oh, no. Of course not. I didn't push her. In fact, the only time that I touched her was when she stumbled and I was helping her get up and helping her to her vehicle. Now, it's hard to tell from the facts we have of exactly what happened, and I literally don't know who's right between Gibbons and Mazzeo. But here's what I don't believe, that we have somebody on tape in a physical, what appears to be a confrontation, but in fact, he was helping her up. Okay, I mean, how many times have we heard that story, right? Now, I'm not saying he really was trying to have sex with her. I'm certainly not saying that he was trying to do a sexual assault on her. I have no idea. And there was no sexual assault there. And I'm being dead serious about that. We don't know that level of detail. But again, parts of Gibbons' story sound so untrue, it's ridiculous. They say, did you play footsie with her, as other witnesses say you did, earlier in the night when you guys were having dinner together? He says, no, I couldn't have played footsie with her because I had cowboy boots on. Okay. And then they say, were you flirty and told raunchy jokes, as other witnesses say? He says that he's not a good joke teller, and he doesn't even know the meaning of the term double entendre. Okay. You might not know how to pronounce it like me, but that's a different story. And he says, look, I couldn't have made any jokes, and I couldn't have been flirty with her. Quote, I don't have any claim to being a bright individual. Well, that part seems to be true, because he also claimed in deposition that despite being linked with 2 possible mistresses, one including an ex-Playboy model, that he has not had sex since 1995, including with his wife. He says, I'm living proof that you can survive without sex for that long. If that is true that you haven't had sex in that long, you're actually living proof that you do not adjust well if you don't have sex for that long. Next thing you know, you're in a tussle with a cocktail waitress in Vegas in a parking lot and going out with an ex-Playboy model. If you're right, Gibbons, hurry up and go have sex. Release some of that steam, okay? You need that help. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. 2 things. I'm going to thank members in a second, but JR came up with, found how much T-Pain's big-ass chain costs. $410,000. That's why you need to hire bodyguards. I mean, if you go out in that, I mean, it's a guaranteed mugging, right? Without any protection.
I don't know. It just makes me sad. You could buy a Rolls Royce with that.
And if you, all the good things you could do with it.
Yeah.
You know, all the children you could save, all the Rolls Royces you could buy.
I don't know why you'd waste it on chain.
Yeah. Good thinking.
Seriously.
All right. Now, let's thank some members. I'm going to go with member number 566 here, Kevin Sanders. Kevin joined up all the way in January 16th of 2008. He's been hanging with us for quite a while. And member number 1497, Kyle McElroy, joined up on April 20th of 2009. Members make the show go around. We love you guys, and the members get the whole 3-hour show and the post-game show. Brian's going to hang around for the post-game show today. I want to show you a Bill Maher clip where he was copying me. That's a fun little thing that's going to go on in the post-game show.
You too, huh?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
okay.
We'll talk about it later.
Okay, all right. We'll save that for the post-game. Oh, and then, I knew there was something else. I want to talk about the movie I was in over the weekend. So, the only movie I've ever had actual speaking part in.
A feature film?
No, not at all.
Oh,
no.
okay.
So that'll be in the post-game show. We'll explain that. All right. Now.
Now I'm very curious what movie you've been in.
Yeah. Well, you'll see.
Okay. Did you wear a condom?
No.
Okay.
It was hot on the set. So
Was the situation involved?
Yeah, no, it was really hot on the set. It was like 80, 85 degrees. So
okay, good. So
you don't need safe sex when it's that hot.
Ah.
All right. So Charlie Sheen is back in rehab. Very sad news. And it turns out his wife is also in rehab. And the publicist put out a statement saying, as a preventative measure, Charlie Sheen has entered a rehabilitation facility, and that they're trying to work this thing out. Now, why does anybody ever enter rehab? Because they're trying to avoid jail time, obviously.
Well, who isn't in rehab in the Sheen household is the question we should be asking. I heard their dog is in rehab.
The thing is,
your father laughed at me, and I want to thank him for that. I kind of heard him through the glass.
I literally pictured a dog, like, licking up a
There's
bowl
so
of
much
alcohol.
booze flowing through the Sheen household that they actually put rum in the dog's bowl. That dog is wasted.
But the thing is, the irony here is, I don't actually think Charlie Sheen is drunk. Like, has Charlie Sheen been drunk before? Definitely, right? Or whatever he's on, right? In this case, they are saying it's preventative rehab, okay?
Let me ask you this, Jank, and I know where you're going with this. Do we think judges in this country are so stupid that they can't identify when someone's trying to get one over on them when you do the whole preventive rehab thing? Like, I'm going to check myself into rehab now, and it's going to make me look good in the court size. He committed a felony assault in Colorado, right?
Those are the charges. Let's put it that way.
He's got it out of order. First, you go into rehab, right? Then you don't do felony rehab in Colorado. But he committed the crime first, and then he's going. So judges are hip to this now, right?
I wonder, though. That's the thing. I'm not sure.
They have to.
I mean, why do they do it, right? I mean, look, they do it for two reasons, right? And it's always one of two things.
Tiger did it too. It's the new apology. I'm going to rehab.
Right. You go to rehab, and you find Christ or Buddha or whatever else you're going to find. Now, Charlie hasn't found Buddha yet. A tiger did. But so that's next, right? But the thing is, Brian, well, one, does it work with the court? But the second reason they do it is, does it work with the public? Because this is all about publicity, and they want to rehabilitate Charlie Sheen's image, if that's possible. I'm probably still the only guy in the country who still likes Charlie Sheen. But I got a friend he reminds me of. So I have a soft spot for Charlie Sheen.
You don't have to explain it.
Okay.
You like that song since you've been gone too, so that's cool.
We were talking during the break about how I like Lady Gaga's songs too.
No, it's the other one who's the American Idol, Kimberly.
No, Kelly Clarkson.
Kelly Clarkson.
But no, I know. But Lady Gaga. So.
But what I want to say to you is that I don't think it works with the public for this reason. Is that when you hear that someone's in rehab, all you think is the tremendous cost it is to go to rehab. It's like $3,000, $10,000 a day to go to
the ones they go to.
The ones they go to, which makes you hate them more. I mean, these are spoiled people who can't just get off the bottle like everybody else, the hard way. They go to a special place where they're pampered and coddled, and they sit around and they talk to each other about how rich they are.
Yeah, and
now, I don't know. I haven't been to one, but that's probably what I think
we
happened.
did this story over a year ago when Lindsay Lohan went to rehab, and then
look how that worked.
Yeah, that worked wonderfully. She now, by the way, says that if it's not Samantha Ronson, she's going back to guys. Ooh, I couldn't see that coming. Now, I couldn't see that coming because we did that story when she was in rehab and apparently having sex with a married man in the stairway. Okay, so she's getting banged in the stairway. They're having fun. It's not about the rehab. It's about saying, oh, I did terrible things, but it's okay. I was drunk. That's what rehab stands for now.
Yes, it does.
For celebrities.
Yes.
And I think you're right. I don't think it works. I think it makes us 10 times more annoyed at them. One, we're not buying it. Two, you're spending $10,000 a day at this.
I think
facility.
AA works,
crazy.
and I think a lot of things work for alcoholics. There's clearly proven path to quitting drinking, but the 30-day stint at a celebrity, facility, a tank or whatever that is, doesn't alter the fabric of who you are, right? Won't he go right back to throwing his Mercedes off the cliff off Mulholland?
What happened there? There's something fishy there. Because they say somebody took the car and then it went off the cliff, but he wasn't in it, obviously. But
how do we know that?
Yeah,
how do we know what that was treated just like every other story by mainstream press? That Charlie Sheen's Mercedes was found in a canyon below Mulholland Drive. No one was in it. That's the end of the story, according to KTLA and all these other news organizations. Well, no, that's not the end of the story. If that happened to you or me, we'd go to jail and there'd be a big investigation, right?
Well, we certainly go to police headquarters and the cops would ask us questions. How the hell did your car get there? And then you'd have to explain if it got stolen, how it got stolen, when it got stolen, and they'd look into it to see who stole it, etc.
And is it a coincidence that he's a colossal fuck-up?
So,
and he makes $1 million an episode for 2.5 Men.
So let me ask you something, because
that's incredible.
We're little fish here, okay? But you work on some big shows, okay? Does it drive you crazy when these guys who are have all these alcohol problems or drug problems or whatever it is, they're still at the top, and they're making $1 million an episode? Does that you're like, what the fuck? This guy can do it on heroin, and or you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It drives me a little crazy. So I'm wondering.
Well,
you're more in the business.
Wow, and that's sad. Well, it's like, every town has its little ruling elite, and he's part of that club where you're sort of above the law, and and you get to behave abnormally. It's like in Washington, certain politicians do things that are illegal and are allowed to skate. He's one of those people. He's super rich in Hollywood. He's probably allowed to skate on a lot of this stuff. But when you throw your car off the road and you're punching your wife out in Colorado, it starts to get on the radar a little bit. And so the machinery that is Hollywood, CBS and Les Moonves and all those guys, are at this point deciding what's best for Charlie Sheen. He probably has no say in it because he represents enormous profits. He's got the #1 sitcom in this town, in America. 2.5 Men is the biggest hit sitcom on. That's a lot of money to jeopardize.
See, that's a great point because it's 10.6 million people that watch Two and a Half Men. That was the last week's episode. It's number one, as you say. At that point, and, I hadn't thought of it this way, but you're absolutely right, and it applies to Tiger too, and it applies to so many other things. At that point, it's not about Charlie Sheen anymore. It's about CBS. Mm-hmm. And when Tiger has sex with 18 different mistresses that we know of, it's not about Tiger anymore. It's about Nike, right? And it's about Accenture, whatever that is.
And golf, and the network behind golf, and the machinery behind it all is really wagging that dog.
Right. So in a way, since they're humans, they're going to make mistakes, etc. And in Charlie Sheen's case, a lot of mistakes. Apparently in Tiger's case too. But when they do, it's not about covering Charlie Sheen's ass. It's about CBS has got to kick in the hyperdrive to cover Two and a Half Men's ass, because that's where the real money's made, right? And so when there's that much money involved, he has to go to rehab. It's not his choice. That's what the CBS publicist decided, right? And they have a way of dealing with these problems. And you have to enter that machine, and you don't have a choice. You have to do the public apology. You have to do the rehab. And what was the other thing? And then maybe eventually find Jesus.
Yeah, sit down with Barbara Walters or something like that. But
right.
The threshold for, the legal threshold is much higher for him. Because really what's going on in the Sheen residence is not unlike what you see on Cops. It's the same thing. Cops show up, domestic violence call, a guy has run his car off the road, it's this guy who's drunk again, it's the same thing. But these people now they have the best lawyers, and they have a corporate entity behind them. And that has influence. Like, he really did. His wife's also in rehab. Also in this story, child services showed up at their house for the earlier incident, and then they came back or something to check. I mean, that's really kind of sad, right? When your kids are there and both your parents are in rehab, behaving like this, and now child services comes to check in on your kids and their welfare. That's.
Did you know that in L.A. They have a special child services division for celebrities?
They do?
They do.
That check in only on celebrities' kids?
For whatever, there might be a domestic dispute, whatever it is. So if it in any way affects or might affect the kid.
You know what I'm waiting to get out in the open, and someone needs to get to the bottom of this, is that people don't know that the DMV in Los Angeles has a special department that deals only with celebrities.
Really? I didn't know that.
And gives them preferential treatment when it comes time. Because you never see...
Shut up, really?
Yes. You don't see Jennifer Aniston at the DMV standing in the line. And she can't send someone for her, right?
Right.
She's got to go. And they have
Why can't she just go?
Right. There's a special
This
division.
town is crazy.
And that was told to me by someone who works in the DMV.
See, now, the child services thing, at least you can make some rationale for it. You say, all right, you know what? These people are more trained in being media savvy. They got to deal with the media more, and they have to respect their privacy a little more, whatever. You can make excuses, right? But there's no excuse for Jennifer Aniston, go sit your ass on the line like everybody else is to get a driver's license.
I see it.
You do?
What is it, a security issue?
Yeah, that, and also, if nothing else, you're going to get paparazzi. Britney Spears walks into the DMV. I can't get my license and my registration checked out anymore now because now I'm dealing with paparazzi everywhere.
No.
Now I'm pissed that it's more crowded. I'm telling you, dude.
No,
I can
you're
understand
crazy.
it. Like,
you're having more fun at the DMV.
Yeah,
When was the last time you went to DMV and somebody was taking your picture? Well, but you get my point.
Here's the thing about the DMV is that you just make an appointment online and you're served within 15 minutes of going there. Now, Britney Spears theoretically could do that. And then they could just keep the paparazzi out, right? Just bar the door, do whatever you have to do. It would make it more exciting for everybody. I think you're getting preferential treatment. That's what I think. And you want to maintain the status quo, don't you?
Yeah. Now, the thing is, now that you open up that can of worms, I wonder what other government entities have special privileges for celebrities in L.A.
Oh, I'm sure there are many, many, many of them.
Yeah, there must be a ton.
Yeah. No, I mean, when Chief Bratton was the chief of police here, I mean, I used to see him all the time at celebrity events. The chief of police is at book signings. He's at Arianna Huffington's house. He's, you know, really nice guy. I really liked him, and I liked him as a police chief when he was here in LA. But there has to be some facilitation. I'm not saying he showed preferential treatment. I just think the police and celebrity are somewhat
Let's put
in
it this way.
cahoots, right?
No question. Here's how it works. Look, if you mentioned Ariana Huffington, let's take that as an example. If she gets a traffic ticket, when Bratton comes over to the house, she can't be like, hey, take care of this for me, all right?
No,
no,
he
of
would
course,
never do
that's
that.
ridiculous, right?
Right.
But if somebody were to try to rob Ariana Huffington's house, break into their house, they're in for a world of trouble.
Yeah.
Because she's going to call her friend, a police commissioner, and that shit is going to get massively investigated.
Yeah, just like someone in Washington would have preferential treatment for any other crime that occurs in the district, right? The FBI might help out a little. The district police might be a little more, put a couple more men or women on it. They do the same here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And with a little, extra sprinkled on top because they're celebrities.
I have
That's
no
exactly-
evidence of this, by the way, but I
yeah.
just,
Come on, common sense. All right, now, final story for you guys today is a fun story from Cyprus, of all places. Apparently, there was a famous Cypriot star on television, Alina Skordelli, and she's been accused of murder. And this story has many twists and turns. I'm going to skip all the other Greek names, okay, because I will only butcher them, okay?
but they all, you can say safely, they all end in obolus.
Something along those lines, some sort of loblos. Okay, and she apparently got fired from her job as a reporter or anchor on in the station that she was working on, which is apparently the second biggest station in Cyprus, which is damning with faint praise. But anyway, so she apparently hired a couple of hitmen along with her brother, who owned 20% of that company, of the station. They figured they'd rub out the main guy, according to prosecutors, I don't know. They rub out the main guy. They are then able to buy the company, and they put her back on air, right? And they went and shot the guy. But funny little twists and turns in the story, they sprayed Turkish bullets around the area. What do Turkish bullets look like? I don't know. Apparently there's Greek bullets and Turkish bullets. I didn't know. Okay, and so people are like, aha, the Turks are trying to kill this guy because his company and his TV station were speaking out against merging the Turkish and the Greek side in Cyprus, etc. And the police investigated it, and the bullets look like they're from the Turkish part of the thing, and they get excited, and then turns out they caught the guy who was driving away. They had him on tape, and they found him, and he's like,
Yeah, I did it.
Yeah, it was me, and it was another hitman, and we got hired by this lady. She seems a little crazy, but, I don't
The guarantee that she made to him was, yes, I'm going to pay you some money if you kill this guy.
Right.
But here's the other thing. I'm going to put you on TV.
Isn't that the best part of the story? This is true. She says about 50,000
Okay,
pounds.
I'm in. I am in. I was going to say, I can't just do that for the money. But can I be like the weatherman of Cyprus? Something.
Right. So she's like, look, 50,000 pounds plus you get to be the Al Roker of Cyprus. And the guy's like, I'm in. And then they went and killed the guy. They really killed him. Okay? Now, if you're not sure that if it's her or not, right, she goes into court or at the hospital or something, some public arena, right? And she sees the other guy. I think it was court. And she says to the witness, she looks at the witness and goes, on camera, okay? She's like this. And she goes to the other witness, she goes, like, stitching up the lips, like, don't talk. And so the prosecutors are like, we have you on tape. They're like, that would be kind of witness tampering. You seem to have threatened a witness there. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
So, just to clear up any confusion, she was talking about killing someone else, beheading somebody else, or she was talking. Well, it is an overt sign of guilt. One would, or just some kind of intimidation, perhaps witness intimidation.
Yeah, the guy who was going to be Al Roker. Yeah. She was saying, "I'm going to kill you if you talk."
She learned that from like an old, Charlie Chan movie or something. I don't know.
And it turns out, by the way, that the other people that worked at that station, they're like, I don't know how she ever got on TV. She was way over her head.
Yeah, that was the other thing, is that her colleagues kind of threw under the bus and said, she sucked.
Right.
By the way.
Well, I mean, that's only fair. She literally had their boss thrown under a bus.
Yes.
Okay. Well, shot, but close, killed, right?
I think.
But I think it's because they bought their way onto it. That's the sense I got.
Yeah.
you know, that they're like, okay, we'll take 20% of the company, and you'll have to put her on TV.
Yep.
So,
you know, it's still not as crazy, and I was thinking about it around this time with the Winter Olympics. It's still not as crazy as hiring a dude to go out on the ice and whack a skating champion in the leg with a baton.
yeah.
And thinking you'll get away with it. I mean, doesn't that seem like a bad script that Hollywood reject?
You know, every time I think of that story, and Tanya Harding will come up every once in a while, and
I was thinking about it though now with the Winter Olympics that happened. Do you remember that?
No, I know, and I think, how did they think they were going to get away with it? How would the police not investigate? But people in this world are incredibly stupid, and it leads to a fun third hour on the Young Turks. That's what it does.
It sure does.
And a fun post-game show because speaking of stupid guys, did you see the story on the Indian Film Festival and the sexual harasser?
Indians sexual harassing women? What are you talking about?
Okay, that's in the post-game.
Okay.
We'll see the members right there. Sign up for membership on theyoungturks.com and get the whole 3-hour show plus an uncensored postgame.